Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about how to get rid of your sugar cravings. And there's a pretty well established link between sugar and inflammation now that we didn't know in the past. And that's one reason I wanted to cover this topic because one of your key issues in chronic illness is inflammation. And honestly, nobody needs inflammation, whether you've got chronic illness or not. So I've got a 5-step plan. And that's what I'm going to go over with you. And I have to give my usual disclaimer. I'm not an expert. I don't have a degree in any of this. I'm sharing my personal experience, and I use myself as my own guinea pig. So kind of regretfully today, this may not be as helpful to men. I hope that it is, but I'm not a man, and so I don't have that perspective, but hopefully it will still be of use. Okay, step one, quit beating yourself up. And that is a cycle that you can get into. And again, I've talked to so many women and it's all the same. It's like sometimes in the middle of the binging, you're just beating yourself up about why am I doing this? And every time afterwards, the next day, you feel horrible and you have all that food in your stomach it's nasty. And it doesn't help to beat yourself up because, for one thing, sugar is a brain food. Everybody, is attracted to sugar because it's quick, instant energy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it has another side to it. I could use the 21st century word and say dependence, or I could use the 20th century word and say addiction. It's somewhere in that spectrum for most of us. So it's not just about your lack of willpower. It's a fact. It's like trying to quit smoking or trying to quit drinking. It's difficult. And those intrusive thoughts are going to keep coming up. Have a cookie, get some, you'll feel better. So the key, okay, so how does that work? The key is that you have to catch those thoughts when they appear, because you know how it is, they just come up and all of a sudden you're feeling horrible. And it could be any time of the day. And you need a mechanism to recognize those intrusive thoughts and not let them go any further, not feed them. I use the same one for every problem I have like this, the trooper, whoop, 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 pull over. And that makes me stop. Now, I also had one child who had a more laid back temperament than I did at the time and would take my hand and go, "It's okay, mommy." So if that works better for you, a beautiful, young, innocent child that just doesn't want to see you be unhappy and wants you to be okay, that's fine. You're free to create whatever you need to create. But that is how to deal with it. And you have to do that many times. But eventually, those will disappear or they will reduce because it's not completely your fault. It's an addictive substance. And it's something that you can be shamed for in our society. And so those are powerful elements, and it's going to take a while to extinguish all that conditioning, but it will work. The second thing, you need to give yourself as much time as you need to deal with it. And because we're Americans, we want to do it in 8 weeks, right? 6 weeks is even better. This is not something you can accomplish in 8 weeks because think of how long it's taken in your life to get to this point where you are craving sugar. For most of us, can be a decades long process that you've gone through kind of successfully, maybe having more and more of an issue. So you need to give yourself the time to work through it. And you know that thing about the frog, where if you put the frog in the room temperature water and you keep raising the temperature slowly, eventually it will kill the frog. But that works in reverse too. If you give yourself enough time to deal with changing very slowly and just a little bit at a time, that works. You don't really notice it, and eventually it leads to big changes. So I'll give you an example. My big three in sugar were candy, especially chocolate, cupcakes, and cookies. And I also had a fourth, like optional one, which was like slices of cake at the bakery, and Boston cream pie was another one. So the first thing that I did was say, okay, I'm going to pick one kind of candy that I can eat. I'm not going to have any other kind of chocolates, any other kind of candy bars, any boxes of chocolates. I'm just going to eat this one candy. And I'm not going to limit myself about how much I can eat or how often I can eat it. I'm just going to focus in on going to that one brand and staying there. And the reason I did it that way is because I was trying to establish control, but I was trying to do it in like a slow, comfortable way. Excuse me. So that uh, I could get used to it gradually. And honestly, it took about, oh, I forgot. I gave myself 10 years. Okay. That's a long time. But however long you give yourself, those years are going to go by anyway. And it's a question of where you want to be when they're done. Where do you want to be in 10 years? And I had a proviso there. If I didn't make it in 10 years, I would put on another 5 years because it's not the length of time. It's following your own timeline and not being sucked into this kind of instant solution idea. So it took about 3 years to really get to the point where I knew I was never going to buy any other kind of candy but this one. And then I started looking at cookies and cupcakes. And I started trying to buy not my favorite cookies and cupcakes because at this time I gave up the candy. So it's like, I'm good with the candy. I've had enough chocolate. I'm good. So that was well worth 3 years. Even if it had taken 5 years, it was well worth it. So now I went to the cookies and the cupcakes, and I'm like, I don't want to buy the ones I like the best. I want to buy the ones that still taste good, but are not my favorites. And so that meant with cookies, I went to ginger snaps, no frosting, no sprinkles, no filling, just a plain simple cookie that was still good and also burned your mouth if you eat too many. So it had a natural deterrent in there. Um, but that worked because before, when I brought home cookies or cupcakes, they were all gone that day. Whatever the amount or size, they were all gone. And I found if I got something that was less attractive to me, but still good, I had better control. Not perfect, but better. With cupcakes, I tried to stick to bakery cupcakes, and those have, a ton of frosting on them. So the only thing you can do there is I would slice off the frosting and not put all of it back on. I mean, sometimes I would put 75% of it back on, but sometimes I would be able to put just a little bit or not any frosting because you're kind of gradually getting yourself used to the idea that sugar, I say, um, I don't know what percentage of my diet it was, but it was too much. I knew that much. It was too much. So I'm trying to like gently reduce the presence of the sugar just little by little. So I didn't notice that much, but over time it was a lot. So that's how that works. The third thing you need to do is yes, this is a big one. You need to allow yourself 2,000 calories a day. And I don't know if men have this thing, but women, we have this thing that you should eat less. You should eat less calories. And I think it's some kind of a weird bargaining thing where you're thinking, well, if I don't eat breakfast and I don't have very much lunch, it won't be as bad when I binge on the sugar later. It's not really rational, but it's just kind of one of those bargaining things we can go through. And it's like we feel like it's bad to eat the amount of calories that our government and physicians say is what you need to fuel your body. It's like trying to drive the same miles with less gas. It makes no sense. And it puts too much pressure on your system. And that leads to cravings because you feel that. You know you're not getting enough to eat. And so allow yourself to have the 2,000 calories and just take the pressure off because that's a lot of food. And even if you're eating sugar, you can probably fit it into that 2,000 calorie a day amount. And if you can't, don't worry about it because the point here is not dieting, but it's just taking the pressure off yourself about that reduces cravings. Um, Fourth thing, eat a high protein diet. Now, this one I was not happy about. I didn't eat a particularly high protein diet, and I thought it was kind of stupid, honestly. But again, my doctors told me that I should be eating 80 grams of protein a day. And I was just like, 80 grams? I can't eat that much food. I mean, that is a lot of food. And so I'm like, I'm going to do this. But over time, I decided that I would try it. That was only fair. Let me try it. And, I'm not trying to convert anyone who's vegan. This is strictly optional. I'm not presenting it as something you have to do or something that I'm not endorsing a plan. I'm sharing my experiences. So what I found with the high protein diet is like 2 days later, I had way less cravings. It was amazing. So I think I did need all that protein. And I just never expected that to happen. It wasn't listed anywhere on, the program, but that was the impact that it had on me because I wasn't hungry all the time. I wasn't craving food because part of that must have been that I was trying to get protein. And then the last step, number 5, is the big one. And that is to let go of your trauma. Because another thing that's pretty well established is the link between trauma and using things to medicate yourself. And sugar is you can definitely use sugar to medicate yourself. And I am in no way qualified to really talk in detail about this huge process. This is something that has to be done with professional help. It has to be in a safe, secure atmosphere. And it's not easy. It's a very complex thing that can take a long time. And I'm not going to share my process because I don't want to be insensitive to anyone or make anyone feel inadequate in any way. But I will share the outcome. I went to a personal education program called Landmark. And as my grandmother would have said, it did me a world of good. And there was a crucial day where we had this exercise where we were supposed to look inside ourselves and find something sad and make ourselves cry. And I'm like, no problem. But I couldn't do it. Other people, I could hear them starting to sniffle and cry. And then everybody starts laughing when he explains the point of it. And that's about the point when I realized that I had this giant iceberg of sadness in me. It was almost taking up my whole body. And I was like, OMG, I didn't even know this was there. What do I do with this? How do I possibly fix this giant thing? And I had to run out of the room and they had to send one of the little people to calm me down. But when I got home, I drew a little stick figure and I drew that huge thing. And I realized it was a huge iceberg of sadness that probably most likely came from trauma. And, if I didn't mention it, there's a definite link between trauma and chronic illness because it does not just mental damage, mental harm, but physical harm. So I decided I had to get rid of this. And um, over the past 5 years, I developed a process. of just letting it go. And this year I decided I was down to the last of it, which is the most difficult. It's the deepest and the oldest. And I thought, okay, I'm going to let this go. So that's what I did. And when I woke up in the morning, literally, I had no desire to eat cookies or cupcakes. I'm now in my 20th day and I have no problem. I just don't want them. And I'm not talking about being sugar free here, by the way, but I've probably reduced my consumption of sugar by 75%, which I'm fine with that. Little sugar is okay. It's when you get into too much that there's a problem. And I will share with you that the reason that happened is because this was trauma about my mother. And one of the only positive interactions I had with her is that she always would give me candy to keep me pliant, probably. And, terrible parenting. But, I was holding on to that connection and trying to keep it going by still feeding myself candy and sugar. So I, that's just my personal evidence of how direct that connection can be. And before I go today, I want to just give Landmark a shout out. They're not paying me, I'm not sharing a link, but I ended up going through the entire Landmark program. And at the end, they have a community. Your task is to take 10 weeks to develop and create a community resource. And for me, this channel was that project. And it took me a minute uh, because of the fact that I have a chronic illness and it takes me longer. But that is this channel. So thank you, Len. As always, it's wonderful to be with you, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I just encourage you to step out, to take on a challenge, to try something new, to get inspired. All right, see you next time. Bye.